Money comes about by people choosing the best way to economize. And Satoshi was so brilliant in leaving him, her, themselves out of the picture, because one thing they understood was that in order for Bitcoin to be money, that it cannot be created by anyone. We will always have a need to exchange value no matter what system we're operating in. We are the decision makers. We have employed a government because we think that is a better way to be productive as a society. But we generated that. The hardest part of understanding the system that we live in is where do you get the right information about understanding the system we live in. It is no value without a medium of exchange. The medium of exchange has to come first. Everyone's hodling Bitcoin. It's wonderful. Let's hodl to the moon. But there will be no moon if we do not transact. If we all do that on our local level, then eventually we create mass adoption.
Before we get started, give us a brief overview of who you are and why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Robin, I am just your everyday, average, working, hardworking person who is trying to find a way to better myself and be the most productive person I can in society. And I think that a lot of people can probably relate to that story. I'm not an economist. I'm not a finance guy. I am not your financial tech guru of any sort. I am just a guy that happened to stumble across Bitcoin in my everyday journeys of being on YouTube. YouTube has become a university for me in my search for how to better myself in what I now know as the substitute money system. So I found Bitcoin in 2017. And since then, I've just been on a journey to understanding the system that we live in and why Bitcoin is a better money. So that has literally been my focus. And from delving into this field, you understand that there is a lot of misinformation. So the hardest part of understanding the system that we live in is where do you get the right information about understanding the system we live in?
I get that. Yeah, there's so much noise out there in the field, especially in finance. There is I think Bitcoin only, if you have a Bitcoin only content creator, they're usually there's a lot of high signal. But if you go out on crypto, maybe you go out even further with finance in general, you find a lot of noise and it's really hard to see what kind of information is out there. But even on Bitcoin only, there's a lot of different informations out there. There's a lot of noise and different signals out there. It's hard, finding the right information and who to trust and who not to trust. It's a long process. You have to listen to so many people, and then you're at some point you figure out, those two are shit. Those two maybe are trustworthy. I can understand.
Yeah, exactly. And coming to understand Bitcoin and a system of don't trust and verify, my practice has now been whatever information that I think that I'm getting from this source is good, I want to verify with another source. And then I want to verify with another source. And then I want to proof check it with another source so that I can come to my own conclusion on what is the right information. So we take bits and pieces of information from here, from there, and we piece it all together until it starts to make sense. And the process is long because this fiduciary media system, as Von Mies likes to put it, because I am on my Austrian economics journey, is quite complicated and complex and intentionally designed. So to navigate your way through, thank God for Bitcoin for making it clear and precise how money should work, So that is where I am right now. And I have come to the understanding that money is not invented. Money comes about by people choosing the best way to economize. And Satoshi was so brilliant in leaving him, her, themselves out of the picture, because one thing they understood was that in order for Bitcoin to be money, that it cannot be created by anyone. It just has to be accepted by many in different places at different times that will all come to an understanding that Bitcoin is a more marketable, saleable commodity to use, especially as a medium of exchange. And because it is so great as a medium of exchange, it coincidentally has a magnificent store of value. And that is a narrative that it has taken me a long time to understand, because a lot of the information and what we hear first about Bitcoin is that it is the best store of value. And indeed it is, without a doubt. But we haven't really spent a lot of time talking about why Bitcoin is the best store of value, the real reason why Bitcoin is the best store of value. And that reason is simply because it is the best medium of exchange. But we have not crossed the line where we're actively using Bitcoin as the best medium of exchange. And me being here on the ground, I am taking the social layer of Bitcoin and delving into my social economy to engage more people in my community and my surroundings to ensure them that there is a better way than operating in the substitute money system that we have. Bitcoin allows you to see from outside the system what it looks like. And it takes a minute to get there. But from what I understand is that it starts somewhere. And for those who have a better understanding of how the technology works and why it is such a better source of money and medium of exchange, those are the people that we need to learn from. Those are the people who can lead by example. Because Carl Menger teaches us that the best way for money to rise is by observation. So we can only observe those who are in a economic position to use Bitcoin as a better form of money. The store of value is absolutely fantastic. It's a wonderful idea. But I don't think many of us have really considered how many people can use Bitcoin as a store of value. You know, we talk all the time about the unbanked population and how there's a large percentage of the world that is completely unbanked. Well, we know that these people are unbanked, but for some reason we haven't pieced together that, yeah, these people are unbanked. And the next level after, being banked would be saving. So if these people are unbanked, the idea of using Bitcoin as a store of value is just nowhere near the forefront. So we have to get to a point where we understand that Bitcoin is the medium of exchange, the better medium of exchange. Everyone can interact and transact with Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, but not everyone can transact and store Bitcoin as value. Not everyone has that privilege. Not everyone has obtained that level of wealth where they can store Bitcoin as value. But we all can use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. So we have to get that narrative out there if we want Bitcoin to be the medium of exchange that allows us to have that unlimited, infinite store of value. That's where we got to get to.
That's a super great point of like a lot of people, like everyone can use it as a medium of exchange, but not everyone can use it as a store of value, because there are a lot of people that just live from month to month. They don't
Month to
really
month,
have something.
check to check, day to day. I mean, we really have to consider everyone. You know, not everyone has the privilege of delving into fiduciary media products such as MSTR and GameStop. You know, that is a privilege to be able to navigate your way through a substitute money system and increase your value in the substitute money. That is a privilege. Everyone needs to transact some form of commodity as a medium of exchange just to survive, to consume their everyday needs, to fulfill their economic purposes. Everyone needs that. Not everyone has the level to store that value. But if we really want to get there, we have to push this narrative that Bitcoin needs to be used as a medium of exchange. You know, we cannot say it enough. It is the best form of money. We have spent over a century delving into and exploring all the ways and advantages to use substitute money. Okay. 1913 was the beginning of where we are right now in history, if the US dollar as the reserve currency being controlled by a small select group of people. You know, Carl Menger teaches us that money was invented by no one, not a legislative act, but simply as a need to exchange value. We will always have a need to exchange value no matter what system we're operating in. If humans are to survive, if humans are to thrive, we must economize, we must exchange value on all levels, everyone. And then once we figure out the best exchange of value on our own time, by examples of others showing them exchanging and being more productive, having a better means to exchange its value. When others lead by that example, more and more people will come to understand what is the better way to economize. Because just like humans, animals, we all need three things to survive: sleep, water, and food. And that's nothing no one has to teach us. We don't have to ask the government legislation when to sleep, when should we eat, when should we drink. So we certainly can't ask them, when should we economize? How should we economize? What means should we use to economize? That is up to the people. But for some reason, the people have forgotten. We have forgotten that life and existence and purpose is up to us. We are the decision makers. We have employed a government because we think that is a better way to be productive as a society. But we generated that. We chose representatives from our communities to represent our interests. So we must clearly display what our interests are, and then allow our representatives to represent our interests. But they cannot represent our interests by just theory of talking about it, of ideology, without practice. We need to practice the interests that we want to be represented. And I understand that taxes is a huge concern, but I'm okay with that. If my government wants to tax me because I've decided to transact in Bitcoin, to buy coffee, to buy a t-shirt, to buy something online, so be it. We're going to get to a point where I'm hoping that enough people will make these same transactions, and the government will have to change their mind about the decisions they make, because we, the people, are who they represent. And if we, the people, have decided on our own accord, without the influence of any central body, that Bitcoin is the better means to transact and exchange our values, then we, the people, have that choice to make. And no one can tell us we cannot. Telling me that I cannot economize in the best way I see fit, it's like telling me that I cannot eat, sleep, or breathe.
Love that. And I never understood that argument of taxes, because people always bring it up. Oh, but then you pay so many taxes. And for me, the flip side of that is, if you say you have, let's say, 90% in Bitcoin and 10% in fiat, and with that 10%, you transact in the fiat world. So you don't pay taxes when you sell fiat, basically, when you spend money. And when you then go ahead and go all in Bitcoin, so you have 100% in Bitcoin, then you pay taxes on the Bitcoin that you sell. But you only pay taxes on the profits. So you made more money than you would have made when you just held on to the fiat. So in order to pay taxes, you have to make a profit from that. So you're actually not losing anything. You're actually gaining value from that, because you don't pay taxes on a loss or like something like that.
Right. We're not paying taxes on a loss. So yes, so that's why the best way to, get into Bitcoin is to dollar cost average your way, right? So that, one day you buy Bitcoin at the top, one day it's a little bit down. So you have a nice weighted average of the value of your Bitcoin so that you can transact and not really have to worry about what the taxes or fees were. I'm going to leave that to those who decide that it's worth the process of taxing me to figure out that I am going to just choose a better money to transact in, because I understand that this is a better way for me to value myself. This is a better way for me to be productive and economize in the best way that I see fit, which every man has the right to choose. This is where we have to understand. It's a wonderful narrative. We always hear the story. Bitcoin is the best store of value. Yes, it is truly the best store of value, but it is not the best store of value without a medium of exchange. It is not the best store of value without a medium of exchange. It is no value without a medium of exchange. The medium of exchange has to come first. Now, I understand the way Bitcoin technology works. We had to mint Bitcoin. But I don't think it was an accident that Satoshi released half of the supply of Bitcoin within the first 4 years. Because Satoshi understood that in order for Bitcoin to be successful, it had to be a medium of exchange. And it couldn't be a medium of exchange releasing 5%. We had to release a significant amount. And he stated, once a predetermined amount of Bitcoin has been minted, the validators can survive off of transaction fees. While I understand right now that there's not a lot of transaction fees, and that's because we aren't using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Everyone's hodling Bitcoin. It's wonderful. Let's hodl to the moon. But there will be no moon if we do not transact. So right now, Bitcoin is a wonderful store of value against time. Bitcoin has risen as it has hedged against inflation over time. But we have not seen the true value of the Bitcoin network. As one of your guests you recently had on from Nigeria stated very clearly, the net worth is in the network. So if we don't use the network, the net worth will be a slow, low time preference game. So I have a low time preference. But at the same time, I think that the time preference for Bitcoin would be a little more, faster if we had the Bitcoin use as a medium of exchange on the rise. We have the company, I don't know if you've heard of Steak and Shake. here in America, right? So Steak and Shake did a wonderful, remarkable thing. You know, them allowing payments in Bitcoin is a definite game changer. So now if we can get more big companies that service the public, that have hundreds of millions of customers to allow Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, then we can get to the next level, which is the most important level, that medium of exchange, you know, and then we can all delve into the other aspects of Bitcoin and really focusing in on things such as mining and getting everyone to educate themselves on the Bitcoin technology. So what I'm doing is working with people such as the Mateo and the Orange Pill app, working on the social layer of Bitcoin, because we have to build our social economy and understanding where Bitcoin is and how we get the Bitcoin to be the medium of exchange. So within my social grouping, I am using Bitcoin. I am telling other people to use Bitcoin, find ways to transact in Bitcoin. If we all do that on our local level, then eventually we create mass adoption. But if we don't do that, the mass adoption may never come. And I understand on the technical side, there may be issues with Bitcoin scalability. But I think we're at a point now where we can test out how much scalability we really have on Bitcoin. Let's test it out. If we're waiting for the number to go up and then transaction fees have become extremely expensive, and then the onboarding cost becomes much more expensive for people to get into Bitcoin. No, we don't want to wait for the number to go up and for it to be harder for people to get into Bitcoin. We need onboarding now. We need more people adopting Bitcoin and transacting in Bitcoin now. And let's allow the number to go up because we're processing more transactions. There are more people using Bitcoin. And let's see what Bitcoin scalability looks like. Let's see how many people decide to use Lightning. Let's see how many people decide to use things like Cashew and Fetterman. Let's see how far we can go with the scalability options that we have now. But if we're telling everybody to just store Bitcoin as value, we're not going to get there. 95% of the supply is released. What are we waiting for? 96, 97, 98.3? What's the number? Let's use Bitcoin.
That's a really interesting perspective. Would you say it's ethically wrong to pay people in fiat because we know how bad fiat is?
Robin, you've just opened up another can of worms. Bitcoin has led me to understand what money really is. Robin, for the last 100 years, no one on planet Earth has been living and operating in real money. There's those who have stored gold as a value of money. But every human being that I know economizes, studies, creates debt, tries to find all different kinds of ways to thrive in a substitute money system. And the reason it is a substitute money system is because it has no ability to store value. There has been absolutely zero value created in the money substitute system. What has been created is better ways of obtaining substitute money through fiduciary media products, such as MSTR. Wonderful idea. I don't have a problem with it. Let's build the substitute money so that we can transfer it to real money, the most usable real money, the most saleable real money. There's only one, and it's not gold. Gold has been a wonderful, ancient, historic store of value, but it in no way does it compare to the Bitcoin technology. I understand that is a great way to translate how Bitcoin works to people. by using gold as a reference. But Bitcoin is far more superior, far more use cases than gold ever had. So, and indeed, Bitcoin is the most saleable commodity to use as a medium of exchange. And those that know that and continue to push the narrative of operating in substitute money and continue to find ways to sell people products in substitute money, I'm not sure what kind of people they are. I'm not sure if I would classify them as honest, humanitarians, good people, because Bitcoin makes it very clear what a good person is: trustworthy, verifiable. I trust because I can verify, open, not authoritative, allowing everyone to make their own choices and not looking for ways to cancel people for making choices that are not of the greater consensus. So all of the people that spend thousands and countless of hours, days, and lifetimes studying, hundreds of thousands of dollars going to Ivy League institutions to learn how to operate in a broken money system. Now, I understand if you didn't understand the system and you're just following along, you're just observing the best way to economize, because that's what we do as humans. We observe the best way to economize, and then we make those decisions on how to practice those best ways to economize. So for those that did not know any better, they made an honest, conscious decision to study all of these substitute money projects, to learn all of this substitute money terminology, to become extremely knowledgeable and educated in the substitute money system. I'm sorry for those people. And I hope they take the time to learn Bitcoin and learn that there is a better way. And it's going to be people like me and you, and having conversations like this and having conversations in personal, face-to-face, on a local level, to explain there is a better way to economize, to show there is a better way to economize. But then for that particular group of people who are choosing to push this narrative of operating in this broken substitute money system, well, Bitcoin is letting me know who you are. I know who you are. I can see clearly the kind of person you are. And then on top of that, you have a select few that have not only chosen to push the narrative of the substitute money, but then tell you that they wouldn't touch Bitcoin, that Bitcoin is a bad idea, that it's going to zero. And having the knowledge of knowing exactly why Bitcoin is a better option. I can see those people. Bitcoin has allowed me to see straight through them. You know, from Jason Lowry's standpoint, you know, the soft war aspect of Bitcoin, it is about the survival of the fittest and the strongest. At some point, you will choose to survive and thrive on Bitcoin because it is the better option to economize. You will have no choice. We only need a certain amount of people to start using Bitcoin. And once the engagement begins on that small level where enough people can observe that Bitcoin is the better option to transact in, at that point, they don't even need to know that it's 21 million or 2.1 quadrillion as the new conversation is unveiling. They don't even need to know that. They need to know one thing. that Bitcoin is the more saleable commodity for a medium of exchange. And if I want to economize, and if I want to consume things for my life and myself, I better use the most saleable medium of exchange, or I'm not going to have many options to economize. That's where we're going with this.
That's a really good. That's a really good insight. I think it's like super interesting to see Bitcoin as a medium of exchange first. And you're well aware of Jeff Booth. And he was, I think, the first one on my channel that said, if Bitcoin fails as a medium of exchange, it will also fail as a store of value, which was a big statement. And previously, I always thought that store of value is required so that we can move on to medium of exchange later on. But maybe medium of exchange is the actual more important aspect of Bitcoin, so we can take away that fiat monopoly of legal tender. It's also interesting with the IMF and the El Salvador story. They're not as mad about El Salvador that they are stacking Bitcoin, but they're very mad on El Salvador that they have Bitcoin as legal tender. And I think we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Like, why does the fiat system want the legal tender thing? You can buy Bitcoin, but don't use it as a medium of exchange. That's bad.
Right. They're telling you, do not use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. If you use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, you're going to lose your money. But in the very same breath, they're not stopping you from transferring your substitute money into real money. And the reason that is because never in the origins, in the history of real money, has it ever been created by any legislative act, by any government. Money has been chosen by the people. And we've had multiple forms of money due to different cultures and society around the world. And those groups of people chose the money that was best for their group of people, until we came to a point where we can now cross waters and borders to transact with people that were not a part of our group. And then we needed a better saleable medium of exchange. And that's how we led to gold, because gold was a global medium of exchange that we could use. And the reason everyone stored gold is because they needed it as a medium of exchange. Robin, I was on the same point as you. Bitcoin is a store of value. Like I said, Robin, it really takes a lot of time and investigating and going back and replaying to understand how money should work. And this is the most important subject in the world, because every human does two things. They use energy, and they use energy to economize. That is the boundaries of life. So if you don't understand how to use your energy in the most productive way to economize, you are doing a dissatisfaction to yourself. You are not surviving and thriving in the world in the best way you can, because you have not taken the time to understand the most important subject to all human beings, and that is how to economize. And what is the best way to transact amongst other human beings? What do we all value, and then exchange and store that value to exchange for goods and services in the future? The government cannot tell us how and what that should be. What they can do is, once we as the people have chosen and made a decision on our own terms on how we choose to economize, they can protect and represent our interests in the way that we want them to. So we all have to come to an understanding of really what money is and how money should work. And it takes a lot. It really takes a lot because all of our systems, like Jeff Booth said, you know, they're wrong. The systems are wrong. And to Jeff Booth's greatest point, the world should be deflationary. We're not living in a deflationary world. And the reason we're not living in a deflationary world is because we're operating on substitute money. We go to work. We spend our energy. We consume. We save. We do everything based on a substitute system. We have fully engaged. We have fully transferred all of our value into a substitute system, which is devaluing us every day. The energy that we're using is being transferred to devaluation. You're working hard and your energy is being devalued, not stored. We want our energy to be stored. We want our energy to survive. You know, that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is alive, just like humans. Why? Because it uses energy. Our proof of work is in the energy that we use. Bitcoin's proof of work is in the energy that it uses. Bitcoin is aligned with you. It is aligned with your energy. As you use your energy to prove your value, Bitcoin will use energy to store your value and allow you to transact in your value. One energy supports another energy, but we have to find a way to harness that energy and use it together. Because right now, we are pulling our energy over here and we're using our energy for a substitute system, and they don't go together. Our energy is being pulled down because a substitute system is piling on top of our energy, and they just keep adding more and more and more of substitute supplies, of fiduciary media. And they're not using much energy at all to create this substitute. They're using 10 seconds of electronic digital energy to create numbers out of thin air to devalue all of your hard working energy. The energy that you store every night when you rest. The energy that you store when you eat so that you can go out in the world and use that energy to be the most productive person that you can be. And all of your energy is being brought back to you in a substitute system. You're using your energy for substitute supplies, for supplies that will not last you, for supplies that you're holding on to that is going down in value. As you're storing it, it's leaking out of the bottom. There is a hole in your piggy bank at the bottom that you didn't see, that all your energy that you're putting in is coming out. Bitcoin erases that. It allows you to keep your energy, to value your energy, to prove that you used all of this energy to create all of your value. And then you are allowed to exchange that energy with others, to exchange your value with others in a form of energy that they also value, in a form of energy that they can also prove exists. Thank you for Bitcoin. But if we don't use it, we will lose it.
And I love it. That's a catchphrase.
That's it. That's the way it goes with anything. That's the way it goes with your body. If you don't use it, you will lose it. If you don't use your brain, it starts to deteriorate. Your ability to think, your ability to process, your ability to retain information goes down because it's not being used.
Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange. But if you do have it on exchange, I have two ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if you're in the jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Prague, and very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there. Yeah, you have to think to learn how to think. You have to move to learn how to move, and all of that.
Exactly.
The question is always also for me, like we can't use Bitcoin so much right now. I mean, we can use it a little bit with, so like how I do it right now is I earn actually most of my money already directly in Bitcoin, whatever, 70%, 60, 80%, whatever the numbers. And only a small percentage I pay in Bitcoin. So only a small percentage I'm able to pay directly in Bitcoin. Let's say, I don't know, 10, 20%, something like that. This naturally forces me to sell Bitcoin, to use fiat as a mean of exchange, because I have fiat bills that is just not there. Like I just cannot pay them in Bitcoin directly. So for me, I want to pay everything in Bitcoin because then I can operate on a Bitcoin standard. I already earn in Bitcoin. I already fulfill like the half of the requirements. I don't even have to buy it. I earn it in Bitcoin. But there's not too many merchants out there that I personally use to accept Bitcoin. Now the question for me is, what do you think has to happen that more merchants accepting Bitcoin? What is the things that will trigger more and more merchants to say, hey, we should adopt Bitcoin, like stake and what was it? Shake and stake, steak and shake, something like that.
Steak and shake. I know it's confusing because we also have another company called Shake Shack that's also kind of familiar, but it's steak and shake, right?
When I'm in Vegas next week, I try to go to one. Is there one in Vegas?
I believe there is one in Vegas. Yes. I'm in New York, so unfortunately we don't have one because I would have definitely been there on day one. So what we need, Robin, is we need more people who maybe run smaller businesses to start accepting Bitcoin. We need social, economic communities that we're building to really, like, for example, I'm a personal trainer by day and I'm running my own business. So I'm trying to encourage my clients to pay me in Bitcoin. Now, I'm running a small operation, but that's where it starts. It starts from maybe individuals who are entrepreneurs who run small services and businesses to allow their clients or customers to pay in Bitcoin, to advocate for them to pay in Bitcoin. It starts small. There right now, like I said, we have a few places here in New York. We have PubKey. I'm sure you've heard of PubKey. So you can go there and spend your Bitcoin. Now, I understand maybe you're not into, going to a bar and having a beer, so maybe that's not like your first choice or option to go and use Bitcoin. But there are a few things like right now, BitRefill, where you can buy prepaid, cards with your Bitcoin, and then use those prepaid cards to pay for other things with the substitute system. So just try and find smaller ways to use Bitcoin. Transact, send stats. We have places like Nostra and the Orange Pill app, which is creating a magnificent Lightning community where you can send zaps. Everyone has a Lightning wallet on the app, and you can zap people. So once we, start transacting with your friends, send them Bitcoin. Find little small use cases, and we have to do more orange pilling, to keep talking about Bitcoin within your circle. And, eventually it will slowly but start to grow. But right now, I think what we really have to do right now is push the narrative of find ways to transact in Bitcoin, because the main narrative that's in the front right now is Bitcoin is the best store of value. Yes, it is. But let's transact in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the best money. Bitcoin is the best medium of exchange. We have to push that narrative. And when we start pushing that narrative, maybe more merchants will decide, you know what? Why don't we add Bitcoin as a form of payment? But right now, we're pushing the narrative that Bitcoin is the best store of value. So maybe most of these people that have small businesses, hey, they're storing Bitcoin for value as for themselves. They haven't come to the notion that, you know what, maybe I ought to allow my customers to pay in Bitcoin. Because if I allow my customers to pay in Bitcoin, my store of value will have greater value. If GameStop could come to that narrative, with all of the support that GameStop has, with that niche, that strong community that of diehard game stoppers, who are hodling to the moon. Well, it's wonderful that GameStop has added Bitcoin to their balance sheet. But if GameStop really wants to see Bitcoin do well, if they want their company to make a comeback and thrive, if they want their balance sheet to, to reflect their Bitcoin reserve, then they ought to allow their customers to pay in Bitcoin. That's what GameStop could really do. So we have to have places like that who have, people at the top, who are intertwined with other executives and high-level CEOs. These people have the information. They understand Bitcoin. That's why they put it on their balance sheet. But yet, they're still choosing to push the substitute money narrative. But we need these people who run these companies to push the medium of exchange of Bitcoin. And if they do not, it's okay, because we, the people, are the final say so. We, the people, the node runners. I'm so glad that Satoshi made the node runners have the final say so. The node runners are the representative of the people. The people have the say so. The people shall lead the way. If we, the people, decide that we want to use Bitcoin, then any business that wants to survive in a free market economy will transact in Bitcoin. But any business that wants intervention and protection will continue to push the substitute money narrative. But if they want to survive and thrive in a free market economy, you know what? Maybe that's why a lot of businesses aren't using Bitcoin, because Bitcoin requires you to compete. It requires you to be accountable. There's accountability in Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a free market. And when you put your business on a Bitcoin standard, you're by means entering a free market society. And there's more competition in a free market society because humans are always going to economize in the best way. They're going to always choose a way to make themselves more profitable. And they can only do that in a free market. But for some of these businesses, they've only survived because they're in a substitute money system that can be controlled, which allows them to stay on top and, more importantly, locks others out. So the substitute money system, depending on what kind of person you are, maybe you're taking advantage of the substitute money system and you're taking advantage of people and their energy and their time by keeping them engaged in this substitute money system. Because you know, once you decide to give on Bitcoin, once you put your interests in a free market, real money, sound money system, you have to be accountable for your actions. That's where we are.
It's scary for people taking responsibility.
It's scary being responsible because, I mean, we've all been pacified. We all decided that we wanted to create a government that would lead the way. We decided that it was in our best interest to allow other people to make decisions for us when it comes to our most important economical endeavors. We decided that we wanted others to represent our interests, even though it is absolutely impossible, as Hayek teaches us, for these select small group of representatives to understand every human's personal and individual needs at any given moment in time and place in history. It is absolutely impossible. We have given them the task to represent our best economic interests. And it's up to us to decide that we want to be responsible for ourselves and we want to live in a free market economy and we want to choose the best available saleable commodity to use as a medium of exchange. It is up to us, we the people, we the node runners.
You mentioned Karl Menger and Hayek a lot, so like Austrian economics. So I guess you studied it quite a bit.
I am on that rabbit hole right now, and I'm still studying. It is a lot of information. It's a lot of information to understand, to dissect, and to really process. Like I said, it takes time. But this is the most important subject to humankind, your ability to economize.
I love the term economize. It's a really nice one. I don't hear it enough.
We don't hear it enough. We don't use it enough. But that's where we are.
What is so far in your rabbit hole of Austrian economics? What is the most important lessons you've learned so far from that school of thought?
That the best way to operate and the best way for humans to thrive is in an open, free market. And Bitcoin creates that decentralized environment for us. And it's a basic concept. But for some reason, it's very hard to come to terms with. To be free. We all say we want to be free, but I don't think we all really know what that means. Because being free means being responsible for oneself. So maybe some of us don't want to be free. I know some people that don't want to be free. They wouldn't classify it as not wanting to be free, but they don't want to be responsible for themselves. They want somebody else to be responsible for them. So essentially, they don't want to be free. And I understand that. It's easier for someone else to make the decision for you. Steve Jobs understood that. This is why Apple thrives the way it does. He said, I understand that humans have a hard time making decisions. And sometimes there's too many decisions. So let me just make them for you. But not when it comes to economizing and choosing the best way to exchange your value. That's a decision you should make. Because if you don't make that decision and somebody else makes it for you, I can almost guarantee you it's not going to be the most productive decision that it could have been if you'd have made it for yourself.
Yeah, with the decision, that's really true. It's like we all, if we just look at sales, for example, at cars, German cars are still, and they're going a little bit in a different direction now because of Tesla and other players. They offered so many different options. Now Tesla came along and said, hey, we offer free versions of every car and you cannot customize anything. You buy it as you get it, which is amazing because this means the production line is super easy. But also, it turns out people only want free options. They want no complicated. It's like there's like a long range,
right?
There's a sports car, and then there's the normal version. It's like very simple, easy to understand. And the traditional car makers, you can opt in like what buttons you want and like what wood and like all those things. And like people are overwhelmed. Too many decisions to do.
Too many decisions to make. And I think you're right. And more importantly than the too many decisions to make, it's too time consuming. We have somehow come to a point in the world where our patience have gone way down. In addition to the value of our time and energy being depleted, our level of patience and willing to take the time to understand and dig deep and into details of things has gone down, really down. You know, our attention span is just out the window. So great people like Elon and Steve, they understand this and they've capitalized on it. And it makes it easier. Like you said, they can streamline production. They can give out less choices and people are okay with that. Apparently, like, there are only a select few that want to be fully in charge of making their own decisions in all aspects of what they do. But if you take the time to understand Bitcoin and you like easy decision making, then you would understand that Bitcoin makes it very easy to transact, especially on a global scale. You don't have to take the time to learn my currency, your currency, what the exchange value is, what it is on this given day, what are the interest rates now, do I invest in bonds this week, do I buy equities this week? You know, there's a whole lot of different ways and things you have to learn in this substitute system in our process of trying to have less decisions to make. Well, if you really want to make less decisions, if you really want it to be easier, choose Bitcoin. It stores your value, as you've already been told, but it is the best way to transact. It makes it easier for you to send me something. It makes it easier for me to send you something. There's no middleman involved, unless you choose to have a middleman involved. Unless you choose to have your Bitcoin centralized. That's your option. Free market economy, you know. But if we want easy decisions, come to Bitcoin. If you want to store your value and have a better life and be prosperous and not have to worry about how you're going to survive in the next 10 years, do you have enough for retirement? What if you get sick and you cannot go to work? Do you have enough to live off of for the next 6 months, a year or two, or whatever, until you get back on your feet? Well, Bitcoin gives you better options. It takes away the stress of all of those things of having to worry about, because you now know you're in a system where your energy is being preserved. You're now in a system where you can easily transact with others on a global scale if you choose to do so. Easy transaction. So if you want simplicity, if you want less decisions, come to Bitcoin. Because if you stay in the substitute money system, even though it's being controlled by others, you still have to make a lot of decisions on how to save yourself in that substitute world. Come to the real world where everything is deflationary, where things go down on time, where your value is preserved, right? Where we're not living in a fake economy, where we're propping up the value of a home. We created a system where the value of a home is where we preserve our wealth. Something that should be deflationary. Something that gets easier to make as advancements in technology comes about. Something that we've created more and more and more of. I live in New York City and they're dropping condo buildings everywhere like it's nothing. We have the technology to build fast, quick, but somehow we still have created a system where we're valuing things that are getting easier to make. How did that happen? It happened because it's not real money. So we had to figure out other ways to create value in a substitute system. We have all of these fake evaluations. You know, we're investing in a stock market that stocks are 40, 50, 60 times overvalued. You know, we're just creating opportunities in substitute money. We're just finding ways to strategize in the substitute world. It's crazy. I mean, if you really, really sit and think about it, I mean, what do we, I mean, and now enough of us know better to not engage and do that, to not practice those ideas, to teach the younger generation that there is a better way. But for some reason, we still choose to do it. And I understand, you know, bad habits are hard to break. Lifetime habits, things that you have been taught since your beginning of creation, they're hard to break. But you have to be willing to uneducate yourself and re-educate yourself in the correct manner. You have to be willing to accept that you have been misled, misinformed. And now it is time to reevaluate and understand. It is okay. It happened to every single one of us. You are not alone. It did not just happen to you. You weren't just scammed alone. We were all scammed together, and we have been teaching the scam generation after generation. But now we know better. And when you know better, you should do better. That's just the bottom line. We know better. Let's make better decisions. You know, let's go in our own social groups and let's talk about a better way. Let's show a better way forward. We have to do that. We have to get out of this imaginary, unrealistic world that we have created for ourselves. And I don't blame anyone, because all we're doing at the end of the day is being humans and trying to find the best way forward. So we got stuck in a system that some knew well in advance was a bad idea. This is our third go round in creating a central bank. Our founding fathers understood it was a bad idea. Somewhere in the next few generations that came along, they thought that maybe they could find a way to make it a good idea. But we now have another 100 years of a bad idea in practice, and we can see that it's a bad system. What are we going to do? As humans, what are we going to do? Are we going to continue in this broken system? Or are we the people going to take back our value. And like I said, like we talked about, I understand Bitcoin is not fully scalable. But at this point, we haven't reached whatever scalability level it is able to achieve. We haven't even come close to that. Let's push it to that point. And then we won't have time to focus on the spam narrative because all of our devs will be diving and working hard into scaling Bitcoin because their value has gone up tremendously since more and more people have decided to use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. So now all the focus is on scalability. We got to get there, but we got to push the correct narrative. We got to push the right narrative. Bitcoin is the best peer-to-peer electronic cash medium of exchange. And because it is the best peer-to-peer electronic cash medium of exchange, you can now store your value there. Let's get to it the right way. We have to do that.
I think there's no better way to end the podcast. As you know, we still have 2 questions, the end-routine questions, but
Right.
I love that message so much that I don't even want to put anything on top of that. It was perfect. And then there's so many different aspects we could go down there. Like you mentioned the house prices. I think Bitcoin will solve homelessness, the crisis, because it makes housing affordable again. I think Bitcoin is good for mental health. So all of those things, also the idea of the social layer of Bitcoin, that we all are Bitcoin. There's so many interesting ideas, but I think we can talk like another 2 hours on that. You're a fascinating person. I'm shocked that you're not on more podcasts. I feel like you should be on every podcast that there is. You're an amazing speaker. I'm always careful with bringing on like new people because I just know like it's hard to be on a podcast a guest and really convey ideas. But you are so freaking good in this, so I'm like, well, why are you not on more podcasts? So I hope I see you on every Bitcoin podcast in the future.
Well, I do have one lined up next that I'm doing next month, but like you said, maybe I'll do some more.
Absolutely, please do. I think we need. I'm all about empowering new voices and getting new voices heard. And I haven't heard you before. I think you have been on like 1 or 2 podcasts before. But I think most people that listen to this one now, probably they have heard you now for the first time. And I hope there's many more times to come. There's definitely another time coming on my channel, but there should be more times also coming on other channels. So thank you so much, Dion, for being such an amazing guest already. As you know, I ask one question to each and every one of my guests, and the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Well, besides Bitcoin, like I said, I'm a personal trainer. So besides using Bitcoin as the best form or way to economize, well, your best wealth is your health. So do some form of exercise every day. Dollar cost average and push-ups. Stack Bitcoin, stack push-ups, stack some pull-ups, do some dips, do some squats. Keep moving because your body works just like Bitcoin. If you don't use it, you will lose it. Right? So that's another narrative I can push. And if you need some help with that, you can find me online.
It sounds like you are into calisthenics.
Yes, calisthenics is the best way forward. Using your body, using what you have, using your natural ability to better yourself without any substitutes.
For me, calisthenics is amazing. It's not only in most city free, like for example in Vienna, there are everywhere calisthenics parks, and I go there, and it's usually I'm completely alone, and I'm like, how am I alone here? If I go to the gym at that time, there's like 50 people and I don't have space.
Right.
If I go to calisthenics park, it's for free. It's outdoor. There's sun.
Yes.
and there's nobody there. Like I cannot know. Like I'm always blown away why not more people do calisthenics.
Well, it's hard. It's accountability. That's what it is. Just
True.
it works like Bitcoin. Your health, your wealth, your finance, they all go together. That's it.
Awesome. We have entertained the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question. I mean, I guess the answer is the previous 1 hour that we just recorded.
Right.
But maybe you have a different answer to that one. Outside of number go up technology, what are you most excited about the impact of Bitcoin in the world?
I'm most excited about the decentralization of Bitcoin. The fact that you, I, and anybody can open up a computer and see all of the Bitcoin transactions, that it is open, that it is decentralized, that we can all run a node, that we can all take part in the process of Bitcoin. I'm excited that Bitcoin is about participation as much as it is, it is about using it to better yourself. You are a part of the network. You are the network. It requires your engagement. And maybe that can be our next conversation, as we can talk about the importance of people mining Bitcoin. Because we have this centralization problem in Bitcoin. And we, the people, as Bob Burnett says, the little guys have all the rabbits in the field. We need more rabbits. We need a lot more rabbits. So everybody be a rabbit. Because there's power in numbers. We have the power, but we got to remember it. We got to remind ourselves. So that's my next aspect of Bitcoin.
Then I will summarize the 3 lessons from the day. Use Bitcoin, do calisthenics, and be a rabbit.
Be a rabbit. That's correct. Yes.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dion, for being on. Before I let you go, you already said people can find you online. Where can they find you the best way? How can they reach out to you?
So Nostra is my preferred source. You can just find me on Dion Wilson. On X, you can find me at Orange Pill Man. And if you want to follow my fitness journey, you can follow me at Body by Dion. At Body by Dion on Instagram.
Orange Pill Man. I was searching before on Twitter, but I never found you. And now I know how to find you on Twitter also.
That's it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Bitcoin is the value of time. I love your bio. Really, really cool. People check it out. His Twitter or like his Nostra, and find him there. Everything is down in the description. Thank you so much, Dion, for being on the show, and also thank you so much, as always, for everyone that is watching and listening. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye.